And we are up. And thank you for stopping by. This is Beacon Roadshow, and I am your host, Rich Levesque. Being joined today by our guest, Logan Nellis. As always, the coffee's on and the snacks in the fridge, so feel free. Let me start, as always, with a reminder that you're doing the best you can today and every day with what you have to work with. Whether it feels like it or not, you are enough and you matter. So please take extra special care of yourself today and every day. On Beacon Roadshow, everything is intended to come back to this message and to wrap around it. Because ultimately, we're all doing our best to be our best and to be seen and heard, both by ourselves and by the world around us. The goal for this show is to honor that by speaking of how that works for us and what it looks like. We'll share stories of how we're navigating that journey. We'll also talk about skills and tools that are available to help us along in our own journeys. And that's the thing, there's no one way for anything. We each have to find what works in our own ways and on our own terms. Like all things, treat it like a buffet table. Take what clicks, leave the rest. And whatever way you came about finding this little corner and however you choose to use it, it's an honor to have you here. Today's guest, as I said, is Logan Nellis. Glad to have you, brother.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, Logan is a divine masculine leader and coach, inspiring people through aligned inner wisdom, love, and intuition. And in his own words, it is my highest honor, privilege, and excitement to work with men from all walks of life, meeting them where they are and as they are, while empowering them to step into who they have always wanted to be. Utilizing the body's innate intelligence, we will create access, understanding, and coherence between the mind, body, and soul so that they leave our sessions feeling touched, moved, and inspired to step into their full body fuck yes.
Okay.
I love that introduction. And I just, I would love to know a little bit more. Tell me about what pulled you, into being a leader in that way. It is a thing that I feel like is absolutely desperately needed.
Yes. Yeah. So about going on 2 years ago now, I really had an awakening through a relationship that I wasn't necessarily even meant to be in, and I was in anyway. And what was happening was I was bypassing and I was gaslighting pretty much the entire relationship and not listening to the whispers of my intuition that were trying to come through and lead me in a way that was more aligned. And through that, it created this relationship, which was beautiful in a lot of ways. And at the same time, I wasn't allowing myself to fully show up and be fully aligned and my full body fuck yes and my full expression. And I was diminishing who I was in the relationship to, quote, serve the relationship because I had given my word. And I wanted to stick to my word and create that structure that I thought was needed, when in reality, what was really needed was for me to really honor myself and drop into myself and really just honor and communicate what was really coming through to me, instead of playing into the story of what I thought she wanted out of me and going into that and running all these rackets. So after a couple different programs that I went through, I had this huge just pop of awareness, and I was like, holy crap, like I can't do this anymore. And it's not serving me, it's not serving her, it's not serving anybody around me to stay in this relationship based on all these lies that I was telling myself and others. And so through that, it was rough. It was a rough awakening because it was literally calling me out on all this bullshit that I was telling myself and my friends and everybody around me that wasn't true. And I had to own all of that and communicate all of that to everybody to really be able to free myself of the box or boxes that I had put myself into within those containers. And it was excruciating. It was painful. It was just, it was humiliating, and it was freeing experience of my life because then I could create in the possibilities. Like I stepped into a nothingness that I could create whatever possibility I wanted out of. And so within that, I started stepping in to looking into myself and what was really there, what was missing. And one of the deeper pieces that I was missing was that self-love and just inner knowing and trusting of myself and my intuition to allow myself to come through and step into who I always wanted to be, which was and is a leader within the community to the masculine, whether it be working with men, which is my primary focus, but really anybody that identifies with the masculine. And as humans, we all have the masculine and the feminine, and you can't go one without the other. There's always going to be a balance there. But my main focus here is stepping into the divine masculine, because the what I've found just through my own experience is that, like many men now are awakening to what we've been taught, is really the masculine of war, the masculine of just taking control to take control and be alpha male, when in reality, it's all about creating peace and love and structure and what's the word I'm looking for? Protection, protecting the feminine, protecting the masculine, protecting our families, protecting ourselves, protecting divine protection through everything we come into contact with a humbleness and connection to compassion and love, so we can create the connectedness within each of us, so we can then really connect with, invite in, and soften into that feminine piece and aspect within all of us that then just creates the harmony. So that's just a little bit of my story and what I'm aiming to deliver and be there with people through.
I say that's a lot to unwrap with all of that, and a lot of it to me and in my own experience comes down to, what is my truth in, and how do I access that, and and be able to do that, and even as it runs counter to what is expected, what my hardwiring tells me, what I've been taught. And I'm obviously, far from alone. And, as you can obviously attest to, I think a lot of ways we come into a lot of, roles, and we come into, as mentioned, expectations. And, when balance is probably what's needed. And, balance, of course, it doesn't mean, playing the middle of that, masculine, feminine. Of course, there's going to be times where you're going to need to, lean into that masculine. And by
Yeah.
leaning in, it does, you're going to be protecting, but you're, protecting the feminine, but not in a way that smothers it. And I think
Mhm.
that's really where we struggle. And I know I've struggled in, learning how to be that protector and be able to protect and keep them safe and have them feel secure, while also still letting that feminine, shine its light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have struggled definitely with that in the past, and like for me, like whenever that comes up, and I'm going into my fix it mode of they're
Yes.
presenting a problem, and I'm just like, oh, how can I fix that? Okay, wait a second, hold on, let me take a breath, dissolve that lens, and really just be there for them and with them in that experience and be able to feel that. And that alone creates the structure of safety, because we're holding the container for them and whoever to be able to share themselves vulnerably and authentically and have them feeling like they're actually heard and being listened to, instead of listening through a lens of reactivity or listening or what's another one that I find myself going into, not necessarily comparison, but like going into, oh yeah, I've been there also, and this is my experience, but really just being there with them and and experiencing their person, their humanness, and holding that container. That definitely creates that safety and protection, and that. And oh, I forget where I was going with that, but yeah. So that's usually I I've become quick to really assess where I'm coming from in those types of conversations, and really I think just inviting in the ability to take my ego or wherever my come from is out of it and just be there.
Yeah, and what you're hitting on, this is something that, I'll admit myself, it's a still, I mean, everything's a work in progress. It always is,
Yeah.
and it always will be. I've noticed, in my experience, I've, seen myself as, you know, trying to save the situation, trying to, like Leonidas in 300,
Mhm.
Rush Sparta. And then you realize that you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to and trying, but in the process of, I'll save you, I'll fix, as you had mentioned before, I'll fix this, but there's ultimately nothing to fix. There's times when, you know, situations need to work themselves out, or they need, what they need is, that presence and security to know that, yeah, I've got your back. This, you can fix this,
Mhm.
or you can do what you need to do. And
Yep.
whatever happens, I'm here. I've got your back. We'll process through what we need to process through. And
Yeah.
for me, I had learned, like a lot of us do, that, well, no, it's my responsibility to fix this. I'm the man. I'm the master. This is what I
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I've gone in to try to fix it, I've technically fixed the situation, but in that place, I was, there was no container, there was no presence, there was no listening, and
Mhm.
I've left people feeling unheard, unseen, disrespected, and then all of a sudden they're kind of gradually distancing themselves from me, and I found,
Mhm.
wait, what's going on here? What did I do? I did the right thing. I was the good guy, when in
Mhm.
fact, no, I was, really anything but. I kind of just, went in and just, I scorched earth the situation. And, and that's a really hard thing to get your head around, because there's certainly elements out there that, pick up on that. And, there's a kind of a victim mentality in some circles. So you get into things like
Mhm.
incels and, a lot of that stuff. And but there's not a whole lot of, hey, this isn't really a thing either. There's a balance here, and, there's another way to learn. And, but
Yeah.
once you get to that place, it is, it's an awakening, and it's, in my mind, it blew it right open, and just was a total mind fuck, because it just said everything you've learned, everything you're taught, that doesn't apply, and that doesn't serve, and that doesn't help, and that's, 90% of your problems are because you're locked into this mentality. And
Correct.
no,
That
it's
was the
not this
context.
way, and it's not, the opposite way of aggressive masculinity.
Mhm.
There's it's there it's a it's kind of like a third direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And I just want to bring it back a little bit, because there are nuggets of what we have learned along the way that are divine masculine. It just they're expressed in, not necessarily, I don't want to go into right or wrong or whatnot, because everything's a choice, and it is what it is, and it is really what you make it. Um, But as far as shifting the perspective on certain things, because the masculine is about, being in a logical, action based, and oriented directions, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Where we get into trouble with our quote fixing mentality is when we just automatically go into that, because that's what we think we're being asked by people sharing their issues and problems and whatever with us. But if there isn't an ask from that person to do the action or take the action, then there doesn't necessarily have to be or should be action taken, unless there's clear communication about something that needs to happen. And so I think that's like a big missing part, is we just jump in. It's like, I'm gonna be your white knight, like let's just do this and get over this issue, when it's not inviting. It's like, just, I'm gonna bulldoze this, and then we'll be able to move on, when oftentimes it's we aren't connecting to the core issue of what it really is, and we're touching on the surface stuff, but not allowing any exploration because our listening lens isn't technically there. So the actions definitely need to be there. We need to be in action, but it's through the clear communication and channel between the two that needs to take place first in discussion and co-collaboration of that action before it takes place. And that's a huge code that I'm learning right now, working within this very intentional community, an emergent community that we're creating here in Boulder, which is really exciting, but it definitely pushing the edges on all of that. So
Yeah, and you hit a part that I kind of went around, but I didn't really hit as far as it's all about, the communication. And if you're hyper focusing on what you're going to do to fix things when you haven't even been asked to fix anything and may not be, just as you said, you're not present for what is needed, which is to be that container. And it comes down to basic communication. That's the thing of everything, making sure that you're hearing what is being, what is needed of you, and also, in return as well. That is
exactly. And then being courageous enough to listen to your heart, your inner knowing, and that intuition, that little whisper that you get in whatever situation that's like you could barely hear it below all this mind chatter saying, do this, do this, do this. And it's really just the deeper listening. Okay. And being able to voice that and share that, and that type of vulnerability will allow a deeper leveling of that communication, which is so beautiful. And I found whenever I'm able to do that and trust what's coming up within my heart and intuition, and I speak to it, it just creates magic more often than not. Sometimes it's, it really depends on the other person too, and them taking self-responsibility over their quote response or reaction to what is being shared, and their ability to connect to their intuition too. So it's different with everybody. And for me, the more that I do that, the more that I lead from my listening and intuition from my heart, the less I'm out of the mind chatter and supposed to and this and that, which works sometimes. The logical brain is great, and when really feeling into situations, and especially feeling out what actions to take, more often than not, like my heart knows way much more than my brain does.
Absolutely. I don't know. And a lot of times we're so used to, going back into the brain. And absolutely, as you said, it's, the brain is fantastic for what it's designed to do.
Mm-hmm. Problem solved.
Exactly. And then, but there's other, elements that we have access to that, do the other things incredibly well, and it's a matter of just, learning how to stay present and learning how to listen to that. And also, you hit a great point, even when I'm not sure I like the word mastered, but I'm not really coming up with anything better at the moment. But as you're kind of more proficient in that, doesn't guarantee that, the other person is going to be available to that. And, I know that was that's a trap. It's, when you get that, sometimes it gets easy to snap out of it and try to fix, but it's a thing you have no control over. If somebody can't meet you where you're at, it's not necessarily your fault or anything you've
Mhm.
done. It just may be where they're at that moment, and maybe it turns, it might be that, there's something happening that day that doesn't allow for it, or if it's a consistent thing and it's a consistent obstacle, then maybe, other choices need to be made. Of course, again, as you said, that's individual, and these are things that we have to figure out for ourselves and in communication with each other along the way.
Mhm. Yeah, and there are definitely tools out there to help a person to explore that edge of wherever they're at, and it's about meeting them where they're at and not where you want them to be. Like there can always be goals of where they want and set themselves up to like getting to. And if they're continuously projecting into the future, and which that is great to really envision the future of where you want to be. However, if they aren't present to where they actually are, and they're bypassing all of the things that are coming up in the present moment, and not able to work with the emotions, the feelings, and the things that are presenting themselves in their external environments, that are saying, "Hey, this is going on. Pay attention to me. Let's work through this so we can get you there." It's yeah. So there are definitely tools to bring that presence in, and again, I think it goes back, especially being a coach and being coaches. It's that listening, and it's not just listening to the words. It's listening to their actions, their behaviors, their body language, all of it together, so we can actually get a full encompassing uh, view of where they're actually at, and I start identifying the blind spots and not necessarily calling them out and having them be in a reactive space, but again, bringing in those tools to not necessarily coerce, but allow them to find it themselves in a way that feels natural, that it's like just breakthrough. It's like cracking open and awakening aha moments that then we can work with even deeper and then go into the next space.
And that's a really important element, in, in coaching, in communication, and in a lot of those, it's, you know, it's primarily, it's, listening, picking up if they're open to hear what it is that you're hearing and what you're not hearing. And, that's a big part of communication, is what people don't say.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, Nick, you got it.
So, and what it comes, what it seems like is, and ultimately people have to come and they have to, to see it for themselves and not be like, all right, I'm just going to say what I say to just, get him off my case. That, nothing's getting accomplished.
Mhm.
It doesn't work until, the client can actually come to it and see it fully for themselves. And, that is such an important piece of the puzzle, is
Mhm.
because eventually, if they don't, and if, people are just kind of going along to get along, you're just ultimately going to come back to that. You're going to come back and hit a head again later.
Yeah. Absolutely. And working with men in particular, what the downloads I've been getting in the last couple months here, through listening to various different teachers, and is that I think one of the main issues for men is that we can't, a lot of the times we don't even know how to name the emotions and feelings that are coming up, and and being able to connect the actual feeling in our body with our the concept of that emotion or feeling. So that disconnect there, if there is that disconnect, oftentimes, like, until there is, like, we can't get to the next level of that deepening in awareness in our body to start to listen to our intuition, because we're not connecting the feelings. So let's say, for example, and this is just a, a hypothetical here. So let's say I'm married, and my wife and I are always in conflict, and so we get in this huge fight, and she leaves after trying to get through to me, and I'm freaking pissed. I'm angry, right? And she leaves. I punch a hole in the wall, and she comes back and she's like, "Why are you so angry?" I'm like, "Okay, I just needed to get some aggression out. That's all. That's why the hole's in the wall." And so there's a disconnect there. It's like I'm feeling the anger and all this emotion come up, and I punch a hole in the wall, but then I'm still not recognizing that that is anger. And so there's a disconnect. If I can't connect that, there's not really any access to work with that emotion. And so like oftentimes the first step in working with those types of situations and getting men to get in their body is using tools to allow them to connect to their emotions and emotional body as well.
Now, when you say tools, elaborate a little bit on that. Give me an example.
So, like basic embodiment tools, meditation being one of them, like 1 to 5 minutes a day, just dropping in and really just focusing on your breath and getting into your body without engaging in your mind. So, very specifically, just focusing on your breath and noticing what's coming up in your body. Like, do you have pain here? Do you have tingling there? Like, just starting to identify your physical body sensations. Another is dancing, like just letting go of everything, putting on your favorite song and just dancing, and whatever emotions come up, really just feeling that, and then just allowing that expression to come through. And first, just doing that, and then actually bringing in, okay, sitting down afterwards and maybe journaling a little bit about that experience. So you're conceptually connecting that feeling that came up with what you know it to be in your logical mind. And so that allows the mind and the body to connect. So yeah, those would be like two of the simplest, most basic embodiment practices that I do on a regular basis.
Yeah, those are important. I know, for me, I've got to have, even if it's, 10 minutes out in the back deck while the dog needs to lay in the sun, just kind of just taken that to just kind of really go in. And for myself, journaling, I mean, I'm a writer by, nature, and that's just always been my go-to. I have to, write things out. And, you say, dancing, that is such an important one. And I think, in a lot of areas, a lot of times men feel like, that's, not a thing you're gonna, as like not a thing to do. It goes back to, when we were kids, around here, the local churches would have like the dances on Friday or Saturday night. And, the girls would all, you know, dance in the middle of the floor. And, all the guys
Mm-hmm.
would like have like their, little cliques of guys would all have like their own little corners of the rec center, and we'd be like, clutching our sodas and just waiting, waiting for the next slow dance, because, that's what we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. But, I found that as, I got older and, just didn't, gave less and less of a shit. And also too, when, like my niece and nephew were really, were babies and little, and, it was like, you dance around with them and just kind of have fun with that. And, they felt, they bonded, and they, they loved it, and they were just, with laughing and having fun. And you just kind of got, lost and just kind of letting things go. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it's weird, like even still, like that mindset kind of still gets in the back of the head, like, all right, well, they're teenagers now, so they're not gonna, dance around. Like, all right, so all right, you can't find anything to make an excuse with. And, but it's kind of like, that's important, because you just kind of, when you afterwards, you feel free, you feel like, stuff lets go, stuff breaks
Mm-hmm.
off in that process. And I think it's underrated in a big way. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I used to be a wallflower. The majority of my life, I was a wallflower. I was exactly what you described, like just hanging out with the boys on the side, waiting for the slow dance, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what felt comfortable, and I could get close to a girl, like, ooh, you know. And so it wasn't till about 6 months living in Boulder here that I really got immersed in the ecstatic dance communities, and it was just so liberating and freeing to. And at first, yeah, very vulnerable, awkward as hell, getting out there and like doing some weird body movements, and just playing around with it, and being in a community where it's like everybody's doing weird shit. Everybody's moving in whatever way they feel called. And I know that's not the case in some spaces, but in these ecstatic dance spaces, it's like once you see that there is no judgment from anybody else, even if you're quote being like observed by somebody that's hanging out on the wall, like it's so accepted just to be yourself and just flow however you want. And so since I got into those practices, man, my expression is just so much more vibrant. And that is a huge piece of softening into your feminine, is that being able to be in that flow and invite in the rhythm and the music just to come in and take over your body without your logical mind saying, I need to make this next move because it's going to make me look good. It's not about looking good. It's not about looking bad. It's not about looking anything. It's about being in your body and really expressing whatever is coming up. And yeah, so that's been a huge part of my evolution, is being able to get into those practices, and it's allowed me more freedom in my communication and how I show up in other spaces, and it's just so much more fluid and free. And yeah, and it's definitely vulnerable and scary as fuck, especially for men that have been programmed the way you were speaking to. Like, that's the way it's projected in movies and things too. It's like the guys are on the side, the women are dancing, then we have to make the approach, and then it's awkward, and then we get shut down, and then or we might not, or it's like, it's all that bullshit. That's just programmed that we just need to let go and just freaking be ourselves.
It actually reminds me of, when I was, I think I would have been a freshman in high school, and I had just gotten into theater, and I loved doing theater. And my freshman year, we did a musical, Pirates of Penzance, I believe. And you know what? Having a great time, like dancing to the numbers. I was practicing with my partner, and we're just kind of, having a great time. And then for whatever reason, my dad decided he was going to walk in and watch rehearsal. Like, there was no reason why he would. It's just decided he was, and all of a sudden, like, I felt myself just,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt myself tighten right up, and the ride back home, it was just really quiet and really awkward, and yeah. But it's like, it kind of like encapsulates that, all of what we're talking about, in, because you're kind of there, you're kind of in your vulnerability. And, for me, home was the stage. Like, I loved, nobody could pick on me. Nobody could, I mean, yeah, people could probably boo me or whatever, but it didn't matter. I was in this, thing. And you know what? If they were throwing anything at me, the odds are good it wasn't going to hit me. And but that was always, that was always my safe space. And, I felt free and I felt light. And I think, it's a matter of, us learning to find that space, or make life that space, rather.
Yes. And yeah, I go back to the Don Miguel Ruiz, the Four Agreements, and like one of the biggest ones is not taking anything personally.
Yes.
And it's huge, because when you stop consciously and physically taking things personally, it allows that freedom. It's the not giving a shit and just being yourself anyway. And I think it goes to maybe a last part that I want to touch on, is that victim mentality I carried for a long time. It's like, these things are happening to me. They're happening to me. Everything's always just happening to me. And recognizing that, yes, things are happening in my world and around me in my external environment that are really coming into my space to allow me to see a deeper reflection of what is actually going on within myself that I have not looked at yet, and that I have not gone through fully yet to get to that next level. And there's a choice in that, and it's not right or wrong. There's not a right or wrong in whether you choose to look at it or not to look at it. It's going to come through either way. And in the right timing and trusting in that, but being able to recognize it and then make that choice to take the action and move forward anyway, even if you're scared shitless, or you have your dad there that has a certain perception of you, that has this influence on you, and still recognizing that, say, hey, Dad, I know what you want me to be, and I'm going to take this and make it my own and honor you as well. And take that and just own it. And yeah, I'm getting the chills right now, just being able to have that freedom of choice and awareness of that, and not playing the victim and giving your power away, and having choice where you put your energy and give your power away is a really, really big thing within that.
Yeah, and I think that is such an important thing to, I'm glad this is the thing we land on, because ultimately, when we, even when we think we're acting in a way that we've been taught, or our anger or tells us is power, it's not. We're giving ourselves away. We're giving that power away. We're pushing it away. That is,
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's conscious, a lot of times it's unconscious, and it's becoming aware of that, where you're giving your power away, and then having agency in that once you are aware. And sometimes it takes some huge freaking lessons to really break that awareness open, and it's a continuous daily practice. So it can be fun, and it can be shitty too.
Yep.
But all in all, like, another recent download is like going into every day, waking up every day. It's like, this is a game. Where do I want to play? How do I want to show up? This is where I'm going to put my power and my energy, and I'm making a very conscious choice where that energy is going to go, and holding that boundary, and just having that in your awareness from the start of the day, and having that intention is huge, instead of just waking up and having life happen to you. Just taking that small little bit of control back.
Amen. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of great stuff came through here. Thank you for that. And I can't wait to go back and, listen to this again as I'm editing. Because I think there's, definitely nuggets that I'm going to need to take out of this for myself. So I appreciate that. I'm going to completely take it and, and just, we're going to bring this back, kind of take the turn, and I'm going to ask some kind of silly questions. First answer you think, that comes through. It's kind of, with apologies to James Lipton and Lewis Howes, how they kind of end their interviews. So first question, if you could jump into a time machine and go back and experience one event in person, what would it be?
One event throughout history in person.
Yes.
Oh man, that's a huge one. I don't know why it just came, but yeah, the Berlin Wall falling.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
interesting that came through.
That's awesome. And that's the thing I'm looking for. It's like, what's the first thing that comes through? Because a lot of these, it's kind of like, oh, I can think of all these different things. Like, what's the first one? All right. Next one. What's the one thing that if you go without it, it totally just screws up your day?
Self-love. practices in the morning, getting up and writing in my journal gratitudes, writing out love and intuitions to myself and how I want to hold myself. If I don't do that, I'm pretty scrambled throughout the day.
I hear that. A drive-through, it could be food, it could be drink, etc. That's still hard for you to pass up. Like, even if it's not something you take in anymore, you're still like,
In-N-Out burger. I don't even know if we have In-N-Out here in Colorado, but definitely a California thing.
Yeah, I never saw one of those in Colorado when I was out there. I went to one in Hollywood, and yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah. Might be a good thing we don't have them here.
Yeah. Sitcom family from any era that you'd want to be adopted by.
I'm not sure the name of the family, but the Wonder Years always got me.
That's a good one.
Boy Meets World was always great too.
Yeah, like just having Mr. Feeney next door and just being able to just kind of go and just collect wisdom as you need it.
Yep, and having that friendship between Corey and Topanga also, and that lovership and that relationship was just so beautiful to watch all the way through. Yeah.
They had a relationship even adults could learn from, because it just that there was just the depth of it. That's just not a thing you really see in television, and it's really tremendously underrated.
Definitely.
What brings joy?
Connection, being with people wherever they're at, having conversations, having insights and breakthroughs, and just being in love and compassion with other humans and connection. Yeah.
What brings peace?
The same.
And what brings hope?
Hope. Seeing all the people that are having their awakenings, even just a little bit, and awakening to the fact that we aren't separate, that we're all together, and that to make it through, we need each other in connection. It doesn't matter wherever you're from, whoever you are, we need community to thrive. And that gives me hope. Yeah, and creating a sustainable, regenerative, resilient world.
Love it. Last question. What is the one thing you want people to think of first when you walk in the room?
I don't even necessarily want them to think anything. I more so want them to feel the presence, feel just grounded, loving, compassionate brotherhood, sisterhood, just that type of presence, that we're all human and I got your back. Yeah.
I love that answer. You can connect with Logan via email at the address is innerwisdomwarriors altogether at gmail.com. If you go into the introduction, and you're going to see a link to Calendly account, and you can schedule a free 30-minute discovery session with Logan. And yeah, honestly, just check it out. Have an opportunity, just have a conversation and just really connect with what possibilities are there. I invite you to do this. And as we're winding this down, I would like to thank all of those listening. However you chose to do so. Um, you know, things like money and stuff and tangibles, we can always get back, but our time is limited. We only have X amount, and you chose to spend some of it listening to us, and I'm profoundly grateful. Take a swing by beaconroad.net where you'll find my blog, links to past shows, resources for emergencies and wellness of all types, and some cool goodies in the Beacon Road store. Keep checking back because there's more coming in the days and weeks ahead. Or even easier, sign up to receive emails, and we can do that for you. I invite you to visit and follow on social media on Facebook and Twitter at Beacon Road, the number 10, Instagram at Beacon Road, and on YouTube, search Beacon Road with Rich Levesque, Lev as in Victor, E, S as in Sam, QUE, or check it out in the intro. Look at some of the old videos up there, and I invite you to subscribe. And also, too, the podcast is on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, and the usual suspects. Also, go wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a whirl. And if you're getting anything from this, I'd love to hear from you, and please share with anybody who might need to hear what's going on. Thank you, Logan. Thank you very much for coming and hanging out. This was phenomenal, and I had a great time chatting with you.
Yeah, definitely a good time, Rich. I really appreciate you having me on and letting me voice my message and share just a little bit of who I am and how I want to help create change in this world, and trust that the message was received. And yeah, I would love to do this again sometime because there's a lot of content that we could.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. There's so many things. I can't wait to just go back into it. There's so many nuggets in here. And
Yes.
we'll let it go for now. Take care, be safe, be well.
Yes, blessings.